Hi everybody, it's Christina from Adventures in Polish Land, and today I have my May reading wrap-up to share with you. I'm excited because after a pitiful April reading month, I have 7 books that I completed in the month of May, so I'm going to jump right in and get started. I was struggling through a book from April, and I decided to put it down and pick up something that I loved as a kid, and that is a duology. It is P.S. Longer Letter Later, and then Snail Mail No More. These are by Paula Danziger and Anne M. Martin. These are epistolary novels that follow 2 best friends. We have Elizabeth, who comes from a very affluent family, and then we have Tara Star, who was born to 2 17-year-olds, and she often feels like she's the only adult in her household because she has to make sure everything is running smoothly. Tara Star's family moves from New Jersey to Ohio, and so these books are letters and then emails of the 2 best friends writing to each other. What I really admire about these books is that they don't hold back. They face real-life issues that kids go through from an appropriate viewpoint. So for example, Elizabeth's father gets fired from his job where he makes $250,000 a year, and then he develops an alcohol problem. And instead of holding back, the characters in this book really talk authentically about what's going on in Elizabeth's household and what Tara Star and her family can do to try and help from a few states away. So I just found that really admirable, and I think it makes these books really approachable for young readers who might find themselves in similarly difficult situations. And then on the other hand, you have Tara Star's family who, although they struggled for many years, they're finding a really good pace. Tara Star's parents have great jobs now in Ohio, and they're starting to think about having another child. And of course, it's very difficult for Tara Star, who's been an only child her entire life, to think about a new baby coming into the family. And so Tara is, she tells Elizabeth how she's feeling, but she's also concerned that she doesn't want to bother Elizabeth when Elizabeth has these sort of quote-unquote bigger fish to fry. But at the end of the day, it was really great to reread these books. I read these over the course of the weekend. I gave the first one 4.5 stars and then the second one 4 stars. Really enjoyable. I think they still hold up decades later, and I would recommend them to middle school age kids. And I think if you read these as a child, they hold up even as an adult. So I would recommend rereading them if you still have them in your possession. So then I returned to the Empusium by Olga Tokarczuk, which I had been struggling through in April. And this took me a really long time to read. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars because although I really disliked the reading experience of this book, I understand what the author was trying to do, and I think she did it effectively. It just didn't work for me. This is a book about a young man from Poland who has tuberculosis, and he goes to a health spa to try and recuperate from his illness. And while he's there, he meets a variety of other men who are also plagued with this disease, and they're trying to improve upon their health. This book had a tagline calling it a health resort horror story, and unfortunately the real horror of this novel were the characters, because the men at this health resort would sit around, or even while they were going on their daily walks, they would have these conversations. It felt very much like reading Plato or Socrates or something like that. Every single conversation, though, would devolve into a woman-hating conversation about why women are stupid, they're second-class citizens, they're compared to animals, so on and so forth. So this was not a fun book to read, but I appreciate what the author was doing, because as the book concludes, you find out through a reveal the gender dynamics that were at play in the novel, and then you also learn that a lot of the ideas presented throughout the book are also based on famous works of literature written by men that are usually praised and lauded in English courses, but they're actually perpetuating really harmful ideas to this day. So an interesting book. I struggled through it, but I am going to let this book be a lesson for me that I need to DNF when I'm not enjoying something. Like I said, I gave it 2.5 stars. Then I read Prophet Song by Lynch. This is a dystopian novel, but it feels very current. It is set in Ireland, where the government is becoming more and more totalitarian. There are very rigid rules in place, and if you don't believe everything they say and don't follow all of their rules, you will be arrested and you will essentially disappear, which is what happened to our main character's husband, who was the president of the teachers union and organized a protest. Our main character is a wife with 4 children. She was a normal person working as a scientist, and when her husband was arrested, she decided to keep her family in Ireland, even though she had opportunities to leave, and essentially finds herself in the middle of a civil war. This book is written in an interesting format. There are no paragraph breaks. I wish I still had the book to share with you, but it was a library book that I had to return already. There were no paragraph breaks, and there are no quotation marks. So on each page, you essentially had a block of text, and you would think that'd be really hard to read, but I quickly got into the rhythm of the writing style, and I really enjoyed it. It gave the book this quiet, ominous feel that really set the tone for the storyline. And although this book was absolutely terrifying and horrifying, I feel like it's eye-opening, and it's very present to our current situation, especially here in the United States. Makes me want to make sure I have all proper identification, makes me want to make sure I have food in case of emergency, and makes me want to think about potentially having an escape route should we need it. Really scary stuff, but really great book. I gave this a 5-star rating. Really enjoy the writing, and I'll have to check out what else Paul Lynch has to offer. Next up, I read Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is a sci-fi thriller. I have had this on my library want to read list for so many years. In fact, it was number 2 on that list, which means I added it probably close to a decade ago when the book came out in 2016. In this book, we're following a scientist. He works as a professor. He has a wife and kid, and he goes to a bar to celebrate an award that his friend gets. But on the way home, he is kidnapped by someone wearing a mask, and he is injected with a vial. He has no idea what it is, and he wakes up in a world where he exists, but he doesn't know anyone there. And this book follows the quantum mechanics idea in physics. I'm going to butcher how to explain this, but essentially that there are infinite realities, and that every time we make a choice in life, a new reality is split. And there are all these universes, parallel universes, where every version of ourselves in infinity exists, and every version of the world exists. I'm probably butchering this, but I thought this book was so entertaining. You follow this guy travel through different universes and different versions of his life, and it's just really fun. I wanted to be reading this at all times. I think if you're looking for an approachable science fiction novel, this is a great option. It all makes sense in my head, even though I can't explain it to you. Very fast-paced book. I really like the concept of the best version of ourself is out there somewhere living in another alternate dimension or alternate reality. And it was really interesting the technology used in this book. I would definitely say this leans more to the thriller than the sci-fi aspect, and I think that's what makes it very accessible to a wide audience. I know this book is not only very popular, but also had a TV series that came out. So if you're interested in a gripping story that will keep you entertained, but it also has a touching family element to it, I would definitely give this a try. I gave this book a 4-star rating. Then I closed out the month by reading the last 2 books in the Old Filth trilogy. So first up we have The Man in the Wooden Hat, and then we have Last Friends. I am actually going to do a video right after this talking about this trilogy and my thoughts on it as a whole. But just as a quick recap, in the first book, Old Filth, we're following an attorney in England, and it's his story growing up as a Raj orphan during the time of the British Empire, and then flashes forward through his senior years once his wife Betty has died. In this second book, we are following Betty's story. which is a little bit of her childhood, but also how she meets Filth and their marriage together. And then in this last book, Last Friends, we are pitched that this is Terry Veneering's story, and Veneering is Filth's arch nemesis, and he might also have a thing going with Betty. But this doesn't just follow Veneering. You also learn about another attorney, Fiscal Smith, and then you learn about another attorney's wife, Dulce. So really interesting way to wrap up the series. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I found Betty's story very interesting, very emotional at times and touching. And I found the story just very well paced and captivating. Gave this book 4.5 stars. And then I gave this one 3.5 stars. It's probably my least favorite of this series, but still a great way to tie up all loose ends. And I am overall really glad I randomly stumbled across these books in a used bookstore because I had never heard of this series before and I really enjoyed it. So right now I am currently reading Wichita by Thad Ziolkowski. I just started this during my lunch break at work today, and I'm excited to keep going. The beginning was pretty funny. So those were the 7 books I read this month. I'll also show you my little map of the US because I did color in New Jersey and Ohio for P.S. Longer Letter Later and Snail Mail No More. And then I colored in Illinois for Dark Matter. So still a lot of empty space, but I made some progress this month and I'm excited to see where we can end up next month because if I finish this one, I will be coloring in Kansas. I hope to be back to more regular videos soon. Let me know what you read in May if you have any thoughts on these books, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.